For joining us today. We are going to go through Unity Catalog at scale. Please be aware that the session is recorded. As you can see onto the screen, today is all about governance with Databricks. I'm Bianca Stratulat. I'm the Chief Data Officer at Unifeye, and I will be joined today by Raman Gupta, our Head of Architecture, Jeff Jones, our Senior Databricks Architect, and our special guest, Kiran, Senior Specialist Solutions Architect at Databricks and author of the co-author, of the brand new Unity Catalog book, which we will be giving away to a few lucky winners later. Just a quick word about Unifeye. Unifeye is the sponsor behind this meetup group. We are focusing 100% on Databricks, so everything we do is around Databricks and how we can help organization get faster value from the Lakehouse platform. We have more than 4 Databricks champions now. I forgot to update the slide. We have 6 in the team currently, and we are increasing our team. Why that? Because we want to deliver the best solutions and expertise to our partners and clients. We build accelerators, training programs, and managed service around Databricks, and our goal is quite simple: to make data engineering, governance, and AI adoption easier, faster, and more accessible, not just for the data engineers, but for the broader business users. And this session is part of that mission. So before we dive into the technical details, next slide, please. I want to set the scene and talk why governance matters and why it matters now. Across industries, whatever, if we are talking about the public sector, retail, financial services, data is the foundation of everything. Yet, even the most mature organizations face the same challenge: trust, or lacking the trust. More exactly. So it's not about the data volume anymore, or even data quality. It's about whether people can trust the data enough to act on it. So into every single organization, you're going to see this type of scenario. The chief financial officer is cross-checking the numbers into Excel. Another chief officer is asking from where this one comes, and the CEO just quietly stops using the dashboards, and not because the data is wrong, because the governance is invisible. And this is what we want to change. We believe that at Unifeye, that governance should be part of the infrastructure, not overheaded, something that happens automatically into the background. And this is where Databricks with the Unity Catalog comes in. It gives you a single unified governance layer across all your data, AI models, and assets. And this ultimately is making governance consistent, transparent, and scalable. So today we are going to keep it conversational, practical, and we are open for questions. Please post your questions, and of course, please stay until the end for our book giveaway and mini competition. We are running a quick game with a mix of funny and technical Unity Catalogs questions, so expect a bit of learning and a little bit of laughter, just to see where this is going to take you. So let's dive in. Jeff, over for you to take it over.
Thank you very much, Bianca. So we're going to have a quick whistle-stop tour of how data platforms have changed over the years and why a modern governance solution is absolutely required to meet the challenges of those modern data platforms. Next slide, please, Roman. So How did we get to where we are right now? For decades, organizations have relied on data warehouses as their primary analytics platform. These systems were great at what they did. They had structured SQL, they had structured data, they had SQL queries, business intelligence, but they had some really strong limitations. They were really expensive to scale. Both compute and storage are coupled and they grow linearly. They have proprietary formats, so you have absolute vendor lock-in for a lot of these platforms. And they were really limited in the data types that you could work with. It would struggle with semi-structured and unstructured data, not something you could really deal with elegantly in a traditional data warehouse. And they all had built-in governance, but it was just for structured tabular data. Then around about 2010, we saw the rise of data lakes. Organizations kind of said, let's store everything in cheap cloud storage. These things have just started to come online, things like Hadoop, S3, ADLS. This solved some problems. It was cost effective. You can store loads of data for cheap. It's very flexible. You can store any format in any structure, and it's scalable. Because you started to decouple your compute from your storage, you can grow those things independent of each other. But that generated very quickly some brand new challenges. These data lakes became what were unaffectionately referred to as data swamps, because there rapidly became a lack of organization and structure to where the data was. Because of the nature of the files, we didn't have strongly controlled transactions. We didn't have what we call ACID transactions. This led to really bad data quality issues that got worse and compounded, and you had really bad performance. These weren't optimized for analytics. It became a governance nightmare. There was no centralized way to manage access or quality or lineage, and this is where things really broke down. You had data scattered across loads of different containers, S3 buckets. Permissions were managed in IAM or Entra or Active Directory, as it used to be called. There was no lineage, and there was no way to know what data you actually had. And then the lakehouse paradigm came along. This is something that Databricks really pushed, and this sort of emerged to solve this dilemma. What if we could combine the best of both of these worlds? And that gives us open formats. So it's built on Delta Lake, which is something that sits on top of Parquet. These are open source formats that then unlocks things like ACID transactions. You had data warehouse reliability on data lake storage. It built up loads of performance. You had advanced indexing and compaction and caching for really fast queries. And it started to become a unified platform. You could have BI, data engineering, ML, data science, and even streaming workloads all on one architecture. And it had governance built in. It wasn't an afterthought. It was like a core capability of the Lakehouse. And this is the foundation of the Databricks Lakehouse platform. But having the right architecture is only half of the battle. Next slide, please, Roman. So what are the sort of 5 key challenges we have in governance? The first, in modern data platforms, we have these fragmented silos of function and data. Data engineers work on PySpark, for example. Analysts will use SQL. Data scientists will use Python. Each tool has kind of got its own permission system, and there's no unified view of who can access what. Secondly, we've got data discovery and quality. Without answers to where is this data and can I trust it, your teams will waste time searching or using the wrong data. Third, AI and machine learning governance. Models are trained on data, features are stored in feature stores, etc. We have inference endpoints, but who governs that? This is largely unsolved in legacy tools. Then we have scale and performance. Traditional governance solutions were never built for petabyte scale metadata. Permissions checks can really quickly become bottlenecks. And increasingly importantly, compliance demands with the rise of the Data Protection Act, GDPR in the States, CCPA and HIPAA, sorry. These regulations are strict and they're getting stricter, and the penalties for non-compliance are getting worse and worse, more and more prohibitive. You need comprehensive audit logs and the ability to prove compliance to auditors. So the core issue is legacy governance tools were built for the data warehouse era. They don't understand ML models. They can't handle cloud level scale, and they weren't designed for the variety of users and use cases we have today. So where are we now? What does Unity Catalog unlock for us? Can we skip the next slide, please, Roman? So this is where Unity Catalog kind of changes the game. It's the unified governance solution for all of your data and AI assets on the Lakehouse. It's unified. It's one catalog for data, notebooks, machine learning models, dashboards, one permission model across all workspaces, one audit log that captures all access. It's fine-grained. We have control access down to even rows and columns, things like dynamic views that filter data, attribute-based access control for complex scenarios. We're going to get into that in a little bit more detail later, and Kiran's going to give us a really cool demo of that later as well. It's open, it's built on open standards, and it's open source. As of was it last year, Kiran, when they open sourced Unity Catalog? The code base is available. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is super cool. And so it works with tools outside of Databricks. We have Delta sharing for secure data exchange without moving data, single copy data sharing. It's scalable. It can handle metadata for billions of objects. You get permission checks in sub-second, even at that type of scale, and it's designed for multi-cloud from day one. It's also AI native. It doesn't just govern data, as we've mentioned before. It governs things like machine learning models, features, functions, inference endpoints, and it tracks the lineage from the raw data all the way through the trained models to predictions. It ensures responsible AI with built-in governance, which is a theme that's becoming increasingly important, particularly these days. So Unity Catalog really is the control plane for your entire lakehouse. It sits above your data wherever it lives, and provides that single pane of glass for governance. But all of that's great, but how do we get people into that system? How do we govern that access and identity management? There are three areas I kind of want to focus on here just very quickly. We're going to explore how organizations manage identity and enforce access controls at scale with Unity Catalog. We'll cover how Databricks identifies users and applications, how the permissions model that we have, and kind of most importantly, the access control models and the access patterns that we can use as they scale. I've actually just shot ahead a little bit. Ryan, can we just go straight to the next one, please? Perfect. Databricks identities. So Databricks recognizes three identity types: users, service principals, and groups. Group-based access kind of reduces the operational risk and simplifies management at scale. Users are people with email addresses, people that actually interface with the data. Service principal are non-human identities for things like automation, script running, and production jobs. And groups are collections for consistent access at scale. And this matters from a business perspective because using groups is essential for operational safety. Assigning ownership and privileges to groups instead of individuals ensures accountability and prevents accidental modifications. Second, it's scalable. As you grow from 1 to 10 to 1,000 users, managing permissions through groups means you just update group membership in your identity provider once, and those changes automatically sync to Databricks. And third, you get governance consistency. By managing all these identities at the account level rather than the workspace level, you enforce unified access policies across your entire organization. And this can reduce the administrative overhead and risk of inconsistent security practices. Permissions. Databricks works on a zero trust model, so no permissions are granted by default. We then have something called, Roman, could we go on to the next slide, please? The next cool thing about that is privilege cascading. You can grant select on a catalog, for example, and all schemas and tables will inherit that. And then thirdly, ownership is delegated. Every object has an owner who can distribute governance responsibility without giving away admin rights. This becomes essential when we start to scale out, when we start to talk about things like data stewards, data owners, and that governance model as we start to get more mature as an organization. Next slide, please, Roman. And finally, sort of the access control models. There are three approaches that you can use with the Unity Catalog, and best practice kind of recommends that you use them all together in a layered strategy. The first one is privilege-based access or role-based access. You can assign permissions to groups like finance analysts, data engineers, admins, sort of groups of personas using grant statements. And this is simple to manage at scale because when you add a user to a group, as we mentioned, they automatically inherit all of that group's permissions. There's no manual per user updates needed. This is really good for your foundational access control. As you move forward and gain more nuance and granularity in your catalog, you want to start to think about things like attribute-based access control. This is really cutting edge stuff, and it's really exciting. It goes beyond sort of table level access. It filters data within the table itself using tags, where people with specific attributes get access to specific cuts of data. Kiran's going to talk us through a really exciting demo on how that works in practicality, so I'll not go into too much detail here, but this is really cool. This is where we really start to see exciting new value from Unity Catalog. And then finally, permissions allow us to provide direct privilege grants. So when you have super sensitive data and you need to be able to grant permissions directly to a specific user or a group on a specific item, you can then immediately see who has that access to what table. And this is great for compliance critical data that requires an explicit audit trail. In practice, the best organizations use all three of these: privilege through groups for baseline access, ABAC with governed tags for scalable policy automation, and direct grants for sensitive objects requiring explicit control. This layered approach lets you start simple and evolve your governance maturity. So that's me. We're going to hand over to Kiran, who's going to talk us through some of the components within Unity Catalog and the architecture.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a great introduction. While I get my screen sharing set up, let me get it done. Cool. Yep, I'm going to go a bit deep dive onto the architecture part of Databricks Unity Catalog and talk a bit about your discovery features and also end up with some sort of demo as well. Going to be exciting. So when I started writing the book for Unity Catalog, when I reached out to O'Reilly to publish the book, Databricks was the Unity Catalog was a proprietary product within the Databricks platform. But over the course of writing the book, it was open sourced, as Jeff mentioned. Now you can host your own version of Unity Catalog in any cloud or within your local laptop even, and govern your data AI models, right? So that's the power of open source tools for you. Now, Jeff talked a lot about centralized governance. And what is that makes Unity Catalog unique is its capability to bring in all of those components within your enterprise into a centralized platform. Your access controls, your discovery, the lineage for the data assets, like where your data is coming from and where it is actually getting consumed. The cost controls, you need to think about how much you are spending on your data platform. And as your infrastructure team, right, they will have a single point of view of all the expenses you are incurring within the Databricks platform. Auditing, very important for large enterprises. Security and the open data sharing part of it. The business semantics, we have been building a lot on the business semantic aspects and the monitoring and the quality of data as well. Now, in the book, we talk about a fictional company called Nexa Boutique and how they adopted Unity Catalog, how they grow from HMS world onto the world of Unity Catalog, how they implemented some of the best practices while doing that, and also gives you some information about how you can scale your governance using Unity Catalog. Now here, we saw how we can support everything centrally, but what about the other aspects of it? Like what all tools can be supported in Unity Catalog? So that's where it supports everything that is within the platform. You look at tables, your views, right? Everything can be access controlled centrally. Your files, we have something called as volumes for your unstructured files, or even jar files and your wheel files for your dependency management. That can be stored and governed per user using the volume setup in Unity Catalog. Then what about your models and AI tools? All of your models, your AI tools, including some of the guardrails for your AI models, that can be governed using Unity Catalog. Dashboards, if you are using AI BI, for instance, that's growing like anything. We are introducing a lot of features on the AI BI side of the dashboarding that can also be governed, and including federated data sources. So if you can bring in data from your other source systems, including the likes of a SQL Server or even Snowflake. Those sources can be federated into Unity Catalog and can be governed centrally with Unity Catalog. Going ahead, I just want to give a brief comparison of what the architectural changes is between a high Metastore-based workspace and a Unity Catalog-based workspace. If you're someone who are used to the high Metastore-based Databricks workspace, you'd have done this a lot of times, right? Managing your users, integrating SIM into each of the workspace. So if you assume you have 100 workspace, that's like integrating your users 100 times. The Metastore is at the workspace level. So every workspace has its own Metastore. So how do you share this data between workspaces? You either rely on an external Metastore that can be attached to multiple workspaces, and you lose a lot of features if you do that. And that is not scalable as well. That also comes with your own way of maintaining that external Metastore as well. But that's what changes with Unity Catalog. The architecture brings in a concept called the Databricks account level, where you can do the user management at the account level. You just have to bring in all your users into the account level, and you can integrate them into all the workspaces. So that reduces the amount of work you have to do for your user management. Like we just talked about the identities, right? How do you sync your identities into your workspace and bring all of your service credentials or the principals, right? And the groups from your Entra. So all of that can be centralized into the account console and can be federated to all of your workspaces from one single place. And the second thing is about the Metastore. The Metastore itself is a control plane service, right? It sits centrally within the Databricks control plane. And the good thing is that it's a regional service, right? You create one Metastore per region. So you're based out of the UK South region. Every workspace in that region can attach to that single Metastore. So that brings in the possibility of sharing data across multiple workspaces. Think about multiple business units you have. So today you might have to copy the data out and put it into a different storage location. So you have multiple data silos. You end up having multiple versions of your data and don't have the lineage for the data as well. Now with the Unity Catalog Metastore that can be distributed to multiple workspaces in the same region with full isolation of data across the storage layer, you will be able to share your data efficiently across multiple workspaces. You don't have to create data silos, and that helps you with scaling your data governance within your organization. To go next, so the bigger difference from the HMS world is how we handle storage credentials and external locations. In the HMS world, a lot of these isolation was at the workspace level or at the cluster level. So you have a cluster, right? And you have a storage credential, or you use a token to connect to some services. Everyone in the cluster has access to that token. You cannot control access to who can use that token. Assume it's in AWS. You have a AWS role attached to the compute. Everyone who has access to the compute can use the role and assume the role and connect to any services the role give permissions to. So that is not isolating per user, right? So with Unity Catalog, we have introduced something called a storage credentials and external locations. And using these, you can have granular access to each individual. So even if you are sharing one compute, I can only access the token that is available for me. The other users will not be able to access it if they don't have permissions to use the storage credentials. Now that simplifies your access controls yet again. So you can have granular level of access controls in the form of row level access or even fine-grained access controls like column masking for your data in a shared compute. So I will get into a demo of how you can actually set up attribute-based access control, which is probably the most asked for feature in Unity Catalog in the recent days. And going ahead, I will also cover a bit about the discoverability aspects of data in Databricks, observability, and data quality. Now, as a business user, you always have to look at different places to find the right data set for your use cases. Now, you might be looking for a marketing related dashboard or some tables related to marketing. Now, you will probably have to go into the catalog and look at the medallion architecture. Your naming conventions would be like gold dot some table name. And it's very confusing for a non-technical user to find the exact data which they require for their use cases. For this capability, Databricks introduced something called as the Discover experience. So the Discover experience gives you the opportunity to discover data assets within the platform without knowing all the technical aspects of the data itself. And it's kind of a curated internal marketplace. So you can publish your data based upon your domain. So within your organization, you might be having multiple domains, assuming marketing is a domain within your organization. How do you group together all the dashboards related to marketing in one place? All the tables related to marketing, any Genie spaces you would have created for marketing. I want to group together all of that based upon my domain. That's where the Discover experience comes in, helps you understand what kind of data assets you have within your organization. And once you have discovered the data, how do you actually request for accessing the data? So all of that is baked into the Discover experience in the platform. And secondly, about observability and data quality. So Jeff already mentioned about the data lineage, right? You can see that we can produce the lineage of how the data is flowing from your source system to your end users, like what kind of transformation is happening within your data. All of that information is captured for you automatically. And also we have something called as bring your own lineage. So that's for the last mile lineage. So assume you are bringing your data from a Salesforce system onto Databricks, and you want to capture that information within your lineage itself. So that's where you can use the bring your own lineage feature. You can add another layer to the lineage, which can say that your data is coming from a Salesforce system. Or at the end side of it, if your data is being consumed by a Power BI report or a Tableau report, you can show that in your lineage as well using the bring your own lineage custom functionality. Once you have all of this information, you have to think about how your data quality is looking like. So for that, we have enabled a new functionality which does the anomaly detection for you. It captures different metrics based upon when the data was last ingested. Is it ingesting the right amount of data per day? It uses the heuristics of your data refreshing happening on a daily basis, and based upon that, it will come up with these metrics like, is your data healthy? Is it fresh, or is it complete? Now, these functionalities are in preview. The Discover experience and the data quality functionality is in preview. Now, if you want to get this enabled, talk to your account executives. Now, going ahead, I will show a bit of a demo of. First, I will start with the attribute-based access control. Now, as an admin, I have this intuition that there could be a lot of PIA information sitting in my data assets within my catalogs. Now, for me to individually go to each table, tag it with some PA tag, and then write a function to mask the data or filter the data based upon users, that's going to take up a lot of time for me, right? So how do I automate it, or how do I make it kind of a policy where I can apply a policy to my data assets, and it's applied across all of my data assets? So that's what attribute-based access controls gives you. And how do I do it? I'm going to do it in 3 simple steps. First thing is we have a new functionality called data classification. And what data classification does is that when you enable this for a catalog, it will run jobs in the backend. It uses our serverless infrastructure. It uses some AI models or some regex expressions to find out if your data has some kind of PA information in it. So right now we support around 11 different types of PA information detection, including email ID or credit card numbers, addresses, names, etc. So when you enable this, it will generate that report. So if I click on here, it will give me a report of how my detection has been running. For instance, if I go to this dashboard, it has detected email address at 3 columns. So if I click on this review button, it will give me information. This particular catalog, my production catalog, this particular table has a column called requester that could have an email ID. Again, I have a potential customers table with a column called email address. So this will happen automatically in the backend. You don't have to do anything. You just have to enable the functionality, and it will run jobs in the backend, detect all of these PI information for you. So that's the first step, right? You enable data classification. What's the next step? So for me, when I enable this functionality, if I go back to my table, so I'll go to my retail schema and I have a potential customers table here, right? So if you look at here, I can see that it has automatically created some tags like class.name, wherever it found out there is a name possibility, a last name. Then for email address also, it will add a new tag called email address. All of these tagging is happening automatically. Like this is called our governed tag feature. So it's already predefined tag. So you can have multiple tags defined like this. You can manually add tags as well. If I want to manually add a tag here and write a function, that's also possible. But the functionality I'm going to show today is part of the data classification, right? It automatically tagged with name, email address, all of this tags to this data sets. But just adding tags is not going to help you, right? If I go to click on the sample data set, I can still see the first name, last name, and the email address in plain text. Now I need something to actually mask this data. So for that, first I'm going to do is create a function. So I'm going to create a function, very simple function called masking function. It accepts some PI in the form of a string and returns the word masked. So it takes some email ID and just gives the masked as the response. So that's the very simple masking function. I've already defined it. So let me go to my catalog. So I go to my prod catalog in default. So this is where you can see all the components that Unity Catalog manages. So you can see volumes, models, functions, and this is the masking functions I have already defined, right? It's just returning me a masked value. So that's step two. So first step was to enable data classification. The step two was to create a function. So let's go to the last step, which is I want to enforce this function across every data set within Databricks Catalog, Unity Catalog. So for that, I need to create a policy. So I'll go into the production catalog, go to the policies tab and create a new policy. So let's say I'm going to call it masking underscore policy. I can optionally give a description. And I want this to be applied for every users within the platform. So I can choose all account users. So anyone who logs into the workspace and tries to query this data, they will be applied to all the users, right? Now, I can also specify, okay, if I have a set of super users, let's say the super admin, they should be able to see this data in plain text. So if I'm part of the super users group, I will see it as plain text. So I can give the except for functionality. So prior to ABAC, right, writing a policy, you had to define all of these logic within your function itself. So when I wrote this masking function, I have to check if I am part of this group, show them unmasked data. If I'm part of not part of this group, show them the plain text, something like that. Now you can abstract every definition into a policy. Like you can keep your function very simple. That will help with your faster execution of your function as well, because you're abstracting all of that definition into a policy. And once I have defined my criteria for who should this be applied to, I can choose the scope. Now for the scope, I have chosen the catalog prod that will be applied across every table within my catalog. Now my purpose here is to mask the column data. And I have a criteria as well. So I have already prepped the criteria. Let me open that. So my criteria here is having a tag called IP address or credit card or email address, something like that, right? Everywhere, if you find any tag like this, then master data is my criteria. Then I need to choose what is the function. So because we have already predefined a function, I'll go to my default catalog and choose the masking function here. Okay, that's it. I can also view it as a code if you want to deploy this as a SQL query into your CI/CD, integrated with your CI/CD pipeline. You can do that as well as a SQL query. Once that is done, I can click on the create policy, and that would create a policy for me. So what we have done here is 3 steps, right? The first one is enabling data classification. The second one is defining a function that can actually mask your data. And the last one, defining a policy that will be applied across every tables within your catalog. Now let's go back to our table, which is our retail schema and potential customers, and try refreshing the data and see. And hopefully it is masked because it's a live demo. You cannot always say it will work, but yeah, let's see.
Just whilst we wait for this to load, Kiran, I think it's worth mentioning that this stuff that we're talking about here, as recently as 2 years ago, this was a really convoluted process. We had to build custom UDFs and highlight specific rows and specific conditions. And now we can do it, the process you just defined there with policies. So it shows the pace of innovation that's going into Unity Catalog.
Yeah, I'm sure, like Jeff, you would have written a lot of UDFs for masking and like dynamic views. Now that's so simple in the platform, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so it's worked. Like, yeah, I'm happy that it works in live demo. So you can see the first name, the last name, the email address, all 3 are now masked. I can also look at other tables. So let's say I go to my logs. I have some logs information being captured. Here I can see IP address and the location. So if I go to the sample data, this should also get masked because I didn't do it per table, right? I applied the policy across my catalog, so that's getting pushed down to every single table within my catalog. So that's how it works. So let me finish it off with the Discover experience as well. So if I go to the Discover experience here, right? Here you can see all the domains. I see multiple domains defined here. Let's say I'm looking for the marketing domain. Okay, so if I click on this, I can see the dashboards that is related to my marketing domain, right? I can see the marketing performance dashboard, some tables that is actually supporting my business in the marketing domain, and some Genie spaces that is attached to my marketing domain as well. Now, as a business user, it's very easy for me to come and identify the data that is specific to my domain rather than being shown a catalog that is very technical for you. You have to go and look at like gold. Okay, is it the data I'm looking for? No, right? So that's the power of the domains in Discover experience, and that's going to help you expand your business users' discoverability options in Databricks. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Back to you, Raman, to continue with the use case, the customer use case you wanted to show today.
Thanks, Kiran. I think I'm just gonna share my screen. Sorry, Sudha. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kiran. And that was very insightful demo. And as a practical scenario, I must say that we have implemented for multiple clients in the past. These ABAC policies, they were always a massive pain where we started originally with the dynamic views and then gradually taking them to the individual masking fields, but number of functions, number of DDLs, those have to be changed. That was very painful. So that's a really nice feature. Thanks for demonstration. Now, people of the webinar who are tuned to it, if you still have the doubt in terms of the Unity catalog, how it is to be implemented, it's complicated, or does it really work in the real world? And yes, this is for one of the client. We did this implementation. I'll just start with that, the legacy state, what they were in, the pre-state, and then also show you the post-state. So their legacy setup, similar to what Kiran mentioned, they were having 3 different workspaces for each environment, and these meta stores were managed at the individual workspace level. All the user management was done at a workspace level. The challenge what they had is the storage which is connected. So there are a number for the mechanism they were using to host this storage or connect the storage to the workspace and the access path to it. But imagine that this particular setup is for one client for that customer because they had 40 plus odd customers. So this setup was repeated across the number of clients they had. So it was really multiplied to 120, 130 different workspaces. the policies on these workspaces, be it just the production environment or the test environment or dev, the policies management was really a massive challenge for them. The other challenge they had is because they had a number of data scientists who needed access to some of the production data to develop their model, to train their model. They were always struggling or getting the data copied over from production environment by after doing some masking. So masking was a massive pain for them, not getting the volume what they were looking for it. So always a challenge, which means they were either having a the immature model migrated to the production and or migrating having these models trained in the production environment, which is obviously against the MLOps or now LLMOps practices. Yeah. In terms of the access path they were using, obviously this was an Azure client, so they're trying to access this data either via the cluster scope or the notebook scope, but using the access keys, SAS token, or the service principal, even with the state of the final state of the key vault plus DB secret scope they were using, the challenge was once you have access to that cluster, there was no fine-grained access available, which means once you're logging into the cluster, all the data engineers, data scientists, and the data analysts, they have the same set of access, okay? Because all the storage is DBFS mounted, they are able to check all the underlying file systems, creating the files or accessing them, reading them, and creating those tables and those table metastore. Many of those tables were not really registered even into the metastore, high metastore either, right? The only tables which they wanted to register, those were registered. Otherwise, maximum time these notebooks were accessing the Delta APIs to access that data sets. Yeah, direct access to the ABFSS path. From a service principal or the DB secret scope perspective, obviously the secret is stored, but it is the fine-grained access that control was completely missing. And again, to emphasize, imagine this is not for 1 or 3 workspace, it was 140, 150 old workspaces. And anytime they have to onboard a new client, this have to be repeated. Yeah, so the same pain, no policies, centralization. So what does this the legacy state? It had a multiple pain for the customer, the speed, the governance. They were having a massive struggle to it. What we started moving them to the Unity Catalog. So we did make use of the Unity Catalog accelerator, so the UCX what they have, which obviously helps us to accelerate the migration to the Unity Catalog. So eventually, this slide seems very similar to what Kiran has showed earlier. So all the governance or the meta store is uplifted to the Unity Catalog level as a central catalog. We had these storage credential and external locations objects created as a part of the meta store. But using those storage credential and external location, instead of DBFS mounting, we're able to access and connect to the Azure storage. For the development, test, and production, for all three, we had different buckets or different storage containers. In fact, for a few of the clients, they had a more granular requirement. We had these storage attached even at the schema level. So which means the isolation of the data was really done at the individual schema, not only up to the catalog level. Yeah. Access to these storage credentials, obviously the individual users, if they don't have access to the storage credential, they won't be able to access those respective catalog or the rest of the assets within which belongs to that catalog. There is a dotted line in this diagram which you could see, and people may argue that having the development workspace access to the production catalog, but this was still enabling their data science team to pick and choose some of the training data or a subset of the data to do the training of their model, okay, and or at least learn from the data. But that is at a individual data science group who could have that access. So they don't need to really move that data across, but they were still able to access the data. The other great benefit they got while we were doing all this governance for their data sets, we found out that their data science was storing their model artifacts on the Azure storage, yeah, and which means during the development, it's all available onto the Azure storage, those artifacts, and those were migrated to the test storage and then to the production storage, which means there was no visibility about their model, the tracking and the changing, and that became an automated feature for them. They started using the model tracking within the Unity catalog with the feature engineering and many more data science assets available through this Unity catalog. So that was the great add-on success for them. The benefits, now I'm not going to read through each of them, but obviously it's a unified governance, as just touched upon. Not only the data sets, but all the notebooks, the models, all the features, all are part of the same governance platform. The discoverability, like Kiran showed, the discover feature, the new feature, but discoverability is already available to them as a part of the Unity catalog. They can see all the objects and even access that through via the intelligence, data intelligence query. Yeah, so they could access it. Access control, all managed at a user service principals group, but again uplifted to the Unity catalog. Yeah, the audit logs and the last one, the monitoring together. So this was primarily for their operation team. So operation team had a clear visibility, who is accessing what objects are running, the audit logs, when the jobs are running, even the all the workflow jobs which we created, so that logs are available through the Unity catalog. The model registry, spoken about it already, the data science team, they were able to use this model registry and they started using the ML flow and registering every model and their experiments and the tracking into the model registry. So soon they started moving towards the ML ops. Yeah. Last but not least, the data lineage. So initially, because they were having this data landing onto a particular storage container, but when they were doing the transformation, and some of the tables are registered into the high meta store, but many of them were not. So there were always the cases there was no visibility of a particular calculated attribute, where it has come from, how it has been calculated. So that was a key feature. The data lineage is a visible one. It's a graphical interface available as a part of the Unity catalog. So that was the real use case where we implemented for this client. And of course, it was for one of their customers, but then they started rolling out for their remaining 40 odd customers and any new clients where they were onboarding. So it was a massive uplift for them.
It's quite cool to see, because this is quite a common pattern that we see, isn't it, where people start to use machine learning and start to get into data science conceptually for discovery purposes, but then there's a really big gap between doing that and then productionizing it and getting into ML ops. And I think Unity Catalog's definitely a key way to enable that, isn't it?
Indeed. I mean, I'm very sure this particular legacy state still exists in many organizations, because every now and then when we are connecting to many clients who started their journey pre-Unity catalog, so they are still in this state, and right now they are afraid, that moving into the Unity catalog may be a massive amount of effort, what times it's going to take. So with those UCX accelerators and the other accelerators, which as a Unifeye we have and the expertise we have, we can definitely smooth this journey and bring you to this state very quickly. Sorry, Kiran, was firing.
No, yeah, I was just saying, like, it's not just the governance aspects of the benefits we have need to highlight, right? It also opens up a lot of other new features in Databricks that comes with using as a prerequisite, right? For instance, Genie spaces and things like that. That's going to enhance your experience of using the platform and also improve your user experience and governance manifold.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Kiran. I think that is it from the content we wanted to cover today. And now we get into the quiz. So it's a quiz time. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Raman. So everybody, very shortly, I'm going to share my screen and you're going to see a QR code come up. And when you click on that QR code, you're going to go to an app called Kahoot. And just for those of you who haven't used it before, you'll put in a name, be a nickname, if you want to stay anonymous, something weird and wacky. And then we will go through to the questions. The reason I'm giving you this context is because when the questions come up, there will be shapes on your screen, 4 shapes, and you have to click on the corresponding shape to the correct answer. And you are scored based on not just the right answer, but also the time it takes you to answer the question. And that is how we're going to get our 3 winners to receive one of Kiran's books. So bear with me while I share my screen here. Okay. Can everybody see that? You should be seeing a QR code.
And can we play, Sarah?
Kiran, I'm sure you have plenty of copies of your own book. Let's see how many people have been paying attention. I'll give it a few minutes for people to join. Can you guys hear the music too, or is that just me?
We don't hear the music, so.
Oh, okay. There's some some very jazzy music playing for this. Okay. All right. I am going to kick off. We have a few people that have not joined and some funny names coming up. Good luck, Godzilla and Hulk. All right, I'm gonna make a start.
No, they'll have to prove their identity, like with the username.
Okay, here we go. All right, where does Unity Catalog store the actual metadata like table names, column data types for the data assets it governs? Two, one. Okay, correct answer in a system managed by Databricks, separate from customer cloud storage. Right, I'm just going to skip through the answers. How does Unity Catalog handle access to the underlying cloud storage? Ready? More quicker answers on this one. 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. It uses storage credentials. So well done, 10 people that got that right. I'm not reading out the answers, but I think that's distracting. Which feature in Unity Catalog helps classify PII automatically? I don't know. All right, well done, most of you. Automatic data classification is the right answer. Okay, scoreboard, here we go. Final question. Which one is not controlled by Unity Catalog? I think that's it. So, well done, your Databricks sadly. Thank you all for participating. Let's see what the scores on the doors are. Anand, third. AI or Al? AI. And the winner is Ankur. Well done, Ankur. Thank you for everybody for participating. So what we will do is we will share, let me just stop showing my screen. So for those winners, if you can email me with your details, your address details, I will get the book shipped to you with compliments of Unifeye. So I will just put my email address into the chat window so that there's three winners get their book. Okay. And I think we still have a bit of time for questions. So I'll hand back over to Raman and Kiran and Jeff.
Thanks, Sarah. So I think the first one that came through was, can we use the Unity Catalog to govern data in places other than Databricks?
Yeah, it depends. If you are using the feature called federation, so you have data sitting in a SQL instance, you can federate that to Databricks Unity Catalog. Then any access from Databricks to that instance can be governed. So you're making a connection to read some SQL database and join with the Delta or an Iceberg. And by the way, we do support Iceberg natively in Databricks right now. So for people who don't know that, yeah, if you are querying and you are joining with a SQL instance table in Databricks and you want to govern that data in Unity Catalog, yes, that's possible, but not directly any accessing from any other systems, right? It cannot be governed. But yeah, anything via Databricks, federated to Databricks, then you can govern it.
Cool. And that list of things that Databricks can federate to is growing over time as well, isn't it? So that's a landscape that's changing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Great. And I think one other question that came through was, when we masked the whole attribute based on classification of tags, what if I have a requirement where I'd like to mask premium customer and the rest should be visible? It could be based on their status or amount of transactions or sales they made. So I guess conditional masking based on more convoluted criteria.
Yes, that is still possible, but you will have to write that within your function itself. So your function will have to look at these data, and that data should ideally be part of your table. Let's say your table has a marking which says this particular customer is a premium customer. Yes, you can do that check within the function, and in your policy you just apply the function. So the function will probably not be as performant because it's doing a lot of checks within a runtime, like it's all runtime, right? So it will not be that performant, but yeah, it's still possible to achieve something like this using functions.
Yeah, I think there's another one which is about the UCX, that how can I find resource about it. So there are trainings which are available on the Databricks Academy, the free courses, so you could go and explore it. But essentially, this is the tool which you deploy, or it's a very lightweight tool, which is essentially in your environment, try to get all of these metadata about your current setup. That includes how many high metastore tables you have, the tables registered as an external table, or managed tables versus some of the tables which may be onto the DBFS root. Obviously, not a good practice, but it will give you that summary. It's not going to do the migration on its own, but this is the first summary you start with. And then there are additional tools based on your category of the tables. It's a managed, external, root, etc. It will start having you different path how you can start migrating them. Okay, so to again go and search on the Academy. If you are onto it, you will find a number of courses about it. Cool. I think there was one more question about the ABAC, which is they just don't want to filter the data, but also want to obscure it. And I believe, Kiran, you already showed in your demo that you could obscure all of those data set across your state, or you want to limit that to particular tables or catalogs, you could do it. But it's actually obscuring, it's not just the filtering them out.
That's right. So we don't actually change the data. It's only at runtime, right? We don't rewrite the data with some fake data, right? And it would only be masked during runtime. And we do support two types of filtering. Like one is the data filtering, the row level filter, and the second one is the masking, which I demoed it today. But if you want to also filter the data, so assume like you want to filter data for based on location. So if you are in Germany, you should only see the records for German customers. So that kind of raw filtering can be achieved using ABAC as well. But ABAC is expanding a lot. Like we are bringing in more features, and you could possibly see a lot of new things coming in that space in the near future.
Sure. Thank you very much.
I think one last question, Kiran, where can we get your book? Where's that available?
Yeah, so either you can subscribe to the O'Reilly platform and read it online, or if you want to have a hard copy, then you can get it from Amazon. It's around 35 to 40 pounds at Amazon. And yeah, that's mostly where you will get it. But yeah, if you want if you want bulk copies, like you can reach out to me. Like let's say you want 50 copies to give it to some of your customers or your people, just reach out to me. I can give it through some discounts as well.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. I think there are a few more questions, but looking at the time, perhaps we will the call now. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you,
Thanks very
everybody.
much.
Well done to the winners. And thanks,
Yeah,
Kiran, for
well done,
joining us.
Vilas. Yeah, thanks Unifeye for hosting me as well, and thanks Raman and Jeff for working with me on this presentation. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks
Thank you
all.
very much. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
everyone.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.